Now, that's what I think is the good stuff. We're going to really talk now about what one company did, how they arrived at the conclusion. By the way, I was a salesperson on this project in 1999, and I knew absolutely nothing about sales. Nothing. Still don't. Ask some of the people I work with. But the one thing that I did know was that all we did is we walked through the process. We lined everything up, just worked the information flow through. And at the end of this user profile, you'll see how they made their mind up. We didn't sell them anything. We just helped them walking through the concept. So it looks like this. It's at 7 levels high. It's about 26 feet. And that is what it looks like in the virtual world. 15,000 storage location, 4 very narrow aisle AGVs, these things that we're talking about here. 13 aisles. They're about 325 feet long, which I guess is probably pretty average, probably what most folks have. 7 tiers. It ended up having powered inbound and outbound conveyor. That's because this is pure distribution. Product comes in the door and it comes in fast. And the reason why the conveyor is there is because we needed a way to buffer the inbound to the rack locations and meet, guess what, lunches, breaks. So that conveyor is actually there so that they can load that conveyor up and go to lunch. So it's one of those kind of lights out things that we kind of work through. Standard post and beam racking. This racking had been in that facility for 10 years. So it's just standard as you'll get. Host interface to an existing WMS. I think at the time they were using the Catalyst system, which I don't think they exist anymore. So that's changed a little bit. And manual fork trucks, bring it in the doors, onto the conveyor, into the racking. The V&A trucks take over, and then the exact same thing happens. Now this was not a 3-shift operation. This was not even a 2-shift operation. This was a 1.5 shift operation. 4 hours inbound, 4 hours overlap, and then 4 hours of outbound. So their return on investment is probably going to be a little different than somebody who has 2 actual shifts or 3. Why did they do it? They were expanding. They were booming at the time. So they had this warehouse space. They were going to have to put more equipment in. What are we going to do? Let's look at something kind of out there. We need some sort of automated equipment to do this. Increased volume. Again, if you're going to increase throughput, you're going to have to throw people at it. Remember that slide? Okay, that's what they were going to do. Overtime costs. Huge cost factor for these facilities. Huge, especially if it's a union facility. Decreased safety costs. I don't know what those costs are, but you'll see in a second. Their matrix has some costs associated with it because anytime you have people on equipment like this, there's bound to be some safety concerns and damage reduction, the same thing you saw in our prior slide. This slide kind of speaks for itself. Can the guys in the back read it okay? Okay, good. Here's what we did. Like I said, I was kind of a green salesperson back in those days. And we sat down and I helped with this and this. I don't know who helped with this, although I know whose equipment it was. And I don't know who helped with this, but I suspect it was some of our friends in the room here. And I don't know who helped with that, but I know what it is, and I'll explain each of them. So they probably went through the same process you guys went through. If I do nothing, what happens? What happens? There you go. We can utilize the current rack. There's no cost there. There's usually, we have our current manual vehicles. We can keep those and continue on. Manual oil changes, battery changing. For the vehicles, they have to pull the batteries out. And a human picks about 25 pallets per machine per associate. So that's what they were getting. One quick question. You guys in distribution, how many do you see on average? Picks per hour per vehicle. Can somebody help me with that? Is it 25? Is that a good number? Did they use the right number? Is that pretty close? Pretty close. Okay, good. That's great news, by the way. Setting you up. So what we did is we started looking at the alternatives, and of course automated guided vehicles was an alternative. Lines up pretty well, uses a current rack system, A+. Uses an automated vehicle that can change between aisles. Wow, that doesn't really exist. It didn't back then. Good, another A+. Automatic aisle changing, yeah, good. Requires battery changing. That's not such a plus. So that didn't weigh very heavily in our favor, but you'll see we made it easy for them. And when a vehicle is down for maintenance, other vehicles can move to the aisles that the other vehicles are working in. So the load spreads dynamically. So if you take something out of an AGV system, you're never down. Really, the way that we discuss it, we think about conveyor. And of course, that's highlighting black versus white. There's no shades of gray there. But if a piece of conveyor and a line of conveyor goes down, what happens? Nothing moves. With an AGV system, if an AGV goes down, just take it out of the way and the others take up the load. So we talked about that. And guess what? It picks 25 moves per hour per machine. So it lines up nicely to what they were already doing. It's perfect. What do we talk about? What if you don't have return on investment, you have nothing, right? You can't justify it. $1.3 million. Payback, 1.3 years. Pretty impressive for a system like this, I would think. So then we looked at automatic aisle changing. 2.6 million, payback 4.5 years, automatically out of the equation. ASRS, 4.5 to 4.8, payback 6.8 years, probably not going to do it. Also, because they already had an existing warehouse, there's no sense tearing it down and putting an ASRS in, right? That's what we're looking for. And then we have a cube-type storage system. Anybody heard of the active system? Active system is what we used to call a mole system, and that's what that is. So, great system. Just it fits certain applications, and this certainly wasn't one of them. But they looked at it as well. So now, if I were you, and I was you, because I was sitting trying to figure out what question would I ask next if I was sitting here, prove it. That's where the numbers came from. I didn't make them up. That's where their savings came from. And I bet those exact same savings, those exact same issues you have. You probably have more than that, but I bet you got them, because everybody does.